I look back now, and I was always living in the future, as well. Like, I always had to be in motion or doing, because I was so terrified to just sit and be with me. And the biggest gift that therapy gave me is that ability to really be present, not only in my life, but also with me.
My name is Denise McGrouther, and I'd just like to welcome to Great Conversations, and also the founder and the owner of Intogreat, Nicola O'Donoghue. So I'm going to start by letting Nicola talk a little bit about Intogreat, because this has just been a baby of hers, and she's worked extremely hard to get it to where it is, and she's making an absolutely fabulous inroads into this whole well-being, mindfulness area that is a minefield out there, and she's just doing some amazing things.
I did actually want to take 30 seconds because Intogreat is a sponsor of Great Conversations podcast. It's what I do in my day job when I'm not interviewing amazing individuals like yourself. And so I'm very proud of what we're doing. We are a year old now, which is very exciting. And basically, Intogreat, we help people come home to themselves. And I think how we do that is using a data-driven scientific approach to well-being. So we provide the resources and the tools that people need to really thrive in their life. And thriving looks different to everybody. And that's one of the things that we say. We take a very personalized, individual approach to well-being. So we meet people where they are, and we basically just help you navigate through life.
So I want you really to let me know about, how did this little girl from Liverpool, who had this dream of studying law at Oxford University, got to where she is today. Really want to understand the how, the what, and the why.
I mean, it's so embarrassing, isn't it, that a young child has a dream to be a lawyer at Oxford and study at Oxford rather than, I don't know, be a princess.
Especially someone from Liverpool, I mean, let's face it, we do it tough in Liverpool.
So I can't answer that question because I don't have, we don't have a background in my family of people being lawyers and also going to Oxford or Cambridge. So I honestly don't know where that came from. But I do know that I was obsessed with LA law when I was younger. I've always been really driven by a passion to help people. I definitely have this ridiculous value around fairness and equality and justice. And I think it was just probably born from that, watching LA Law when I was younger, being told by my dad that Amanda Donoghue was my cousin, which is an abject lie. But anyway, it served its purpose. And I think just seeing that and seeing the positive impact that lawyers were making in people's lives. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And so, that's how it started.
Okay. And then tell me, so then you graduated law in Oxford. You went into the big corporate law firm in London, which again had always been a dream. And so tell me about that little bit of corporate life that you had, and what changed your thinking about law and being at Oxford? What was that? What was that dynamic that changed your thinking?
I mean, I think unfortunately, where the desire to help people got a bit muddled when I was at Oxford, because as you say, I went and worked for a corporate M&A law firm, which essentially just helps rich people get richer, doesn't it? And so it really sort of pulled me so far away from actually my values and my purpose and what was driving me to get into the legal profession in the first place. I mean, I think just a classic, how did I end up not in Oxford, but how did I end up working in a corporate law firm in London? Part of it was laziness, if I'm honest. Like as a student, young student, when you have a lot of people that are literally knocking at your door, offering you things on a silver platter, which, to be frank, they were doing at Oxford, it was just a really easy option. Oh, this is, and all my friends were moving to London. So I was, I didn't have to, don't want to say I didn't have to work hard, because that's doing myself a disservice, because I worked very hard to get to where I did. But that said, the job process and how I got my, my traineeship and how I got my first job in the legal profession was a lot easier than what a lot of people in different universities encounter.
And I know then, just digressing from Oxford, and I know that, you've then, with this absolute passion that you have for education, you then went on to Cambridge and did your master's. Which again, the little girl from Liverpool with the dream, Oxford law degree, Cambridge masters. It doesn't get much better, Nicola. You work very hard. It's very, very hard.
I'm a lifelong learner. Someone asked me the other day, what can't you live without? And one of the things is books for me. Like, I am an avid reader, both to sort of decompress, but also to learn. Like, I've just got this ferocious attitude and appetite for learning. And I think that's what's been really prevalent throughout every part of my life. Like, I wouldn't have got to Oxford and had that desire and dream if I hadn't, been so committed and dedicated to learning. Part of the reason why I left the legal profession was because I didn't feel like I was being developed personally. And at the time, I couldn't really maybe articulate it in that way, but I felt as if so much had been invested in my development and my growth. And then once I became a practicing qualified lawyer, I felt like that disappeared. And that was part of the reason why I was struggling and unhappy with the job of being a corporate lawyer. And so actually my decision to go back to study and to go to Cambridge and get my MBA was driven by this desire to not only try and figure out what I wanted to do next, but also to continue learning and growing. And I felt that for the 6 years that I practiced as a lawyer, that had fallen away. And I was really lucky to be able to commit full time to my MBA and just embrace every aspect of learning.
I think one of the things as well, Nicola, that, you always finish your last podcast and you ask, what question do you want the next person to answer? So somebody asked a question, which probably if you were interviewing me now, you would ask me, but I'm going to ask you. And the question was, what's the biggest misconception that people have about you or what you do?
I think the biggest misconception is around well-being and what it actually is. So with a lot of organizations, what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing this globally, is people mistake well-being for wellness. And wellness being investing in mental health interventions and like physical health. And absolutely, that is so important. I mean, the way that I see it as wellness is like the sort of foundation upon which then you build your well-being strategy. But well-being is an individual's experience of life. And that is so much broader than just wellness. I think a misconception about me, maybe. I am really strong and I am really resilient and self-sufficient, partly because of who I am personality-wise, partly because of my journey. And I think sometimes maybe people think that I don't struggle in the way that they do and that I don't have my ups and downs. And I am human after all. And, part of it is that I can maybe deal with it a little bit easier because of what I do and because I very much leverage all of the tools and resources that I very much practice what I preach. But I think sometimes maybe people forget that I am human as well, and that I do have down days and that I do struggle with life just as much as everyone else does. My life is not just all gravy and unicorns and okay, because, my work is in the wellness and well-being space. So yeah, I think that's probably a misconception.
To do what you do and do it well like you do, you have to have had those experiences yourself. And so, which will probably lead me into, my next question. What would be your biggest regret and why?
Biggest regret is not getting therapy earlier in my life. It's just the biggest gift that you can give yourself if you can afford it is therapy. because it's this level of self-awareness. So I was really and to be honest, like, 39 years of my life, I was unconscious. I didn't know myself. And, I went into therapy as a result of going through my divorce. And it just opened up for me so much understanding and compassion. Like, I didn't realize the rules by which I was living my life, and then the impact that was having, and quite detrimental impacts, actually. It allowed me to just start to like myself and accept myself. Like, before I went into therapy, honestly, Dee, I just couldn't be by myself. Like, the idea of just being still and being quiet and being by myself, being alone, living by myself, like, I couldn't. I was so terrified. And through the process of therapy, I started to really understand the rules of my life, what was, the beliefs that I lived by, the impact that was having in terms of the decisions I was making, the relationships I was forming. And then I started to also build real compassion and love for myself, so that I could just be with myself. I look back now, and I was always living in the future, as well. Like, I always had to be in motion or doing, because I was so terrified to just sit and be with me. And the biggest gift that therapy gave me is that ability to really be present, not only in my life, but also with me. And yeah, I think that's my regret.
Fantastic. Because, Nicola, a lot of people feel if they don't get the help, that it's a failure. If they do get the help, sorry, it's a failure. And it's not. As you say, it's something that will empower you rather than, the opposite. So, because there is a big misconception with a lot of people out there. But so that's great. And thanks for sharing that, because I know, it was a difficult time for you. Okay, so the next question: biggest life lesson.
I feel like my life has been one series of lessons, which, again, though, to be fair, it's a mindset, and again, this sort of view of everything is a lesson if you want it to be. And so I think this marries with this, curiosity that I have, and lifelong learner. Like, I find that when things happen, I don't really go into victim mode. I go into curiosity of, like, well, what can I learn from this, and why did this happen? And I think for me, the biggest lesson was getting divorced, and, coming out of my my marriage. And that for me was a huge lesson, on just so many different levels. So many different levels. And yeah, it was lessons around, again, I think the biggest one was just me and the choices that I was making, and how I ultimately was, we're just playing small in life, and just playing small in, in all aspects of my
Those
life.
behaviours that you were experiencing became a bit of a norm for you in your life, and other relationships around you, as in some of the friendships you had. And I know, that was a really difficult time. And as you say, that, then obviously when you got the therapy, it helped you deal with all of that and realise that baseline was not the norm. And
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's, when obviously everything's a reflection, isn't it? When you look back now, and the beauty of I guess, hindsight and growth and development. But yeah, like, obviously my relationship with my ex-husband was an abusive relationship. It was 7.5 years of my life. It was a huge part of, but it's pretty much like nearly a decade. But as you say, the sort of benchmark of going into that was very much the normalization of these abusive behaviors that I didn't identify as such. I went from university, which at the time was really brutal as well. They sort of knock you down in order to build you up. And then I went into a professional environment where they knock you down to build you up. And there's bullying, there's toxic behaviors. So to say that the sort of that 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 was so normalized in my world, and I didn't even know that it was abusive or toxic as such. So then it was evidential, like, it was evidential, that's not the right word. It was obvious in many ways that then that sort of, as you say, that baseline was going to then show up in my personal life as well. Because when, part of the MO of my abusive ex-husband, just knock me down, pick me up, knock me down, pick me up, make me feel less than, make me feel unworthy. Well, I'd already lived that. And even when I left law, that was still prevalent in the banks and in the consultancy firms. Like, there's a huge problem within corporate England, I will say, or in the corporate world, around bullying, toxic behavior, sexual harassment. And so, yeah, that was just my world. Like, I didn't even identify it as such. We weren't trained on how to identify coercive, abusive behavior. And so it took a long time. And so it was, yeah, a huge, like, as you say, that huge learning for me coming out of that was not only acknowledging what I had experienced with my ex-husband and the abuse and the impact that that had had on me in my personal life. It was also that recognition of, oh my gosh, this isn't an isolated incident just within, my marriage. Actually, this is replicated in, at that time, certain friendships and certain business, relationships that I had. And so that was a huge lesson for me of not only being able to acknowledge that and label it as such, but then having the confidence to do something about it and to take action. So yeah, that was a huge lesson. Yeah.
Fantastic. And look, thanks for sharing that, because obviously it was such a difficult time for you, and to see how you've grown from that is just amazing. And, for anyone obviously listening to this podcast that's perhaps going through something similar, you can get out of it. It's just having that strength and that you can do that. And obviously, having a great family behind you and beautiful friends behind you that got you through. And of course the therapy and the recognition that was happening, and once you did that, it was I guess the next process was a bit easier.
The levels of just domestic abuse and violence that we're seeing now in our world, and I guess sort of part of that in some small way is a reason of why I'm doing what I'm doing today. So will Intogreat stamp out domestic abuse and domestic violence in the world? Absolutely not. But actually, part of it for me is twofold. I feel like when you love yourself and you've got a handle on yourself and you know yourself and you're more connected to yourself, you go into the world in a very different space. You're much more, well, you take personal responsibility. You don't project your stuff onto others, but you're also much more compassionate. And so I feel like if we can start to build a world where people are more connected to themselves, then actually maybe what we'll see is a reduction in some of the, polarization and the massive issues that we're seeing now. Because when you feel connected to yourself and you feel connected to something bigger than you, it just drives different actions and behavior.
And that's what I love, Nicola, about what you've built as well, because what you've built is you're giving people some of the tools to help them. As you say, it's what you're doing is it's not going to stamp it out, but it will give people some tools to be able to deal, with this if they're in this type of situation, and just give people the strength to be able to, to move forward. So
because I think exactly,
yeah.
and because I think that part of it is emotions, and so I think part of, like, people's reactions and behavior are driven by their inability to know what to do with their emotions and their feelings. And so even like anxiety is a mask for an underlying emotion, and so we're not skilled in how to sit and be with what we're feeling, to own that, to understand, like, then the thoughts that brings up, and then to be in choice over our reactions and our behavior. And so a lot of the, again, the when people are not nice, when they bully, when they abuse, when they create toxic environments, a lot of that is not a lot, all of that is a reflection of how they feel about themselves and their inability to be with themselves and to love themselves and to understand themselves. And so that for me is, as you say, if you start from that basis of giving people the skills and the ability to be able to understand their emotions and then to deal with them in a healthy way, then you're potentially reducing the harm that they have on the world externally.
Thanks for everything that you're doing with, with your business at the moment to really help people, give them the tools to get through. So let's lighten it up a bit. Okay, so What makes you smile and laugh the most?
Just when I'm present in my life, like what makes me smile is just being able to spend time with the people that I love most in the world. Like what makes me smile now is when I go round to my sister's house and I knock on the door and Avery comes running up to me and throws herself in my arms. Like, it's just sort of, it makes everything worthwhile, with what you're going through. So friends and family, the fact that they're well, the fact that I get to spend time with them, and enjoy great food and wine makes me smile a lot.
What do you think is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
To live for today because tomorrow is not guaranteed, but to also build for the future so that you've got a comfortable life. Because the worst thing that could happen is to, grow old in poverty when you've had such a buoyant life. Speaking from a very privileged position here, I think that's actually served me so well, because I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing now if I hadn't adopted that approach 20 years ago when I was first starting in my career. So yeah, I would say that's the best bit of advice.
And so, what what is one vice that you wish you could give up?
My vice is holidays, but am I going to get rid of that? No. If I'm going to go crazy, it's not clothes, it's not handbags, it's holidays, like just booking. And not even that, and I'm not talking 5-star hotels here, I'm just talking going away and traveling and experiencing the world. I think that's my vice.
Okay, so what's your guilty pleasure? Wine.
Why? Korean dramas. I am obsessed with K dramas. Absolutely obsessed with K dramas.
How do you start your day?
Very slowly, which I love. So coffee, all about coffee. I've got a really good coffee machine, so all about coffee. And then I do obviously some well-being stuff. So I will do every day. I do about a 20-minute yoga. I love yoga with Adrienne. So I do 20 minutes of that with Mina, which is always an interesting experience. She's obsessed with doing yoga with her mum. She is. I'll read the paper. Really important for me I'll read the Financial Times, just sort of get up to speed with what's going on in the world. And then I journal. So I created this journal. It's called the Daily Companion for Living a Great Life. I created it for the business when we launched. And basically, I start with a moment of gratitude. So, what's one thing I'm grateful for? And then it gets me focused. So, I've got what's one thing that I want to focus on today, which really now like gets me into my day. And then also, what's one thing I'm going to do for myself, which is huge. Because, remembering to put me on my to-do list, which for many years I never did when I was really busy. And then it's also what's one thing I'm going to let go of. I think sometimes, you can carry things around with you. And so that for me is a really important way to start my day.
So, when do you feel the most inspired? Now, I know that you help a lot of people along the way, and yeah, I know that, and I know you're probably, you're quite humble, and you probably don't want to talk too much about this, but I think it's a really important part of Nicola, is what inspires you and what makes you happy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the people that you've helped along the way?
Mm. I think I am just inspired by people in general. I just, this part of the reason why I absolutely adore this podcast. I'm inspired when I hear people's story, and stories. I'm inspired when I get under the covers. So it inspires me when people feel comfortable to be vulnerable and to open and to share, that I can learn from them. I think when I connect with people at a really human level, I that really inspires me.
And I
And
think
how
it's your
people.
curious nature as well. Your curious nature is that you want to understand people and know about people and know about their culture. And, that's just who you are as well. And because you are curious and you always have been. So, that's nice. What's the one thing you wish you knew at age 19?
What did I want to know when I was 19? Oh, I love those questions. I think it's definitely, so do you know what? I would love to have known that the most important relationship that I'll ever have in my life is the relationship that I've got with myself. I wish I'd known that at 19. I wish, I think that would have really fundamentally shaped my life in a different way. Yeah. And I came to that much later in life. But yeah, that for me, I wish I'd known that at 19. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great answer, Nick. And, who was it that said, Joan Collins said, youth is wasted on the young, and it's true.
Yeah,
So,
really is. I love getting older. Like honestly, the wisdom that comes with getting older is priceless.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I think we've probably exhausted most of the questions I think that I had for you today. Been fun. Love your journey. Love what you've achieved, and you're still achieving. So, as they say, it's a journey, not a destination, and you're doing a fabulous job and helping so many people. And you inspire me every day with everything you do, and I know you inspire a lot of people out there, and just keep doing that. And I just hope more and more people take advantage of the great things that you're doing on your app, and I think it can help a lot of people. So, well done.
Oh, thank you, and thank you so much for taking the time to interview me, and yeah, getting a little bit of my story out there. Um, yeah, I really appreciate it, Denise, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to spotlight Integrate and what we're doing, because we are having a huge impact on people and organisations, and I am way too humble. And I don't talk about that enough, but we are, and I'm very proud of what we're doing. And yeah, www.integrate.net, we are here. So thanks, Denise. Thank you for listening to this episode of Great Conversations. As always, I'd like to thank my editor, Stian Marit, and musician, Jamie Jenkin. Sending you all so much love. Bye for now.